So, Gene, to Sandra's point there, when you talk about forecasts, some people appeared to have very clear crystal balls while others were more opaque, including, as Sandra pointed out, Larry Summers, who wrote on March 15th, 2021, quote, "I believe the Fed has not internalized the magnitude of its errors over the past year, is operating with an inappropriate and dangerous framework, and needs to take far stronger action to support price stability than appears likely." Way back then, he was predicting stagflation and recession. And a question that I have is, do you know Summers very well? He used to work for President Obama. Why was no one listening to him?
Well, you just read a quote about Larry Summers, our former Secretary of Treasury under President Obama, critiquing the monetary policy of the Federal Reserve.
Warning that inflation was on the horizon and was going to rise up and bite us in the buttocks if we didn't do something about it.
That was his comment that you just quoted on the Federal Reserve. Now, I'm not going to comment on it because I just got done saying that we respect the independence of the Fed and that we are not in the exercise of berating them or second-guessing
But, Gene,
them.
it was a warning to everybody. It was a comment on the Fed, but it was a warning to everybody contained in a broader warning that Sandra knows all too well from Larry Summers. Inflation's on the horizon. This is going to bite us. We better do something about it. And nobody did anything except say, oh, it's transitory.
You know, I just disagree with that, and I could quote you 20, 30 other experts who had different projections, who thought inflation was coming down, who thought that what happened was that the global supply chains got worse and did not react. And this particularly hurt the United States when we're the most dependent on, when higher car prices have the largest negative impact on us, when we already had a housing supply shortage, when many of our companies, like rental car companies, cut down dramatically and had a harder time re-upping. So I think that the president has been very much where the larger number of experts in the country and around the world have been. And I think the idea that he hasn't taken steps is just not true.
Well, if he
Even
has,
during
if
that
he has,
time
the
period,
point is anybody who's
just a second.
Let us get him for a second. We've let you go on for quite some time. If he has been obsessed with bringing gas prices down, why are we at a brand new record high today? Why are we seeing $4.62 a gallon at the pump if this president's been obsessed with tackling gas prices and inflation?
You know the answer. You know the answer to that. You know that this is global. You read the papers today. You know that the euro just said that inflation was 8.1%. You read the papers last week that the UK was at 9%.
So there's nothing we can do about it.
And you
there's
know
nothing we as a country can do to bring prices down.
I've explicitly said the opposite. I explicitly said the opposite. What did I say? One, that you put in a strong Federal Reserve and you respect their independence and their need to take tough measures to bring down inflation.
But this is serious stuff. This is serious stuff. This is affecting everyday Americans and cutting into their ability to provide food for their families. How are you?
You just said.
Give us a forecast. Give us a forecast. Where can you have gas prices? Let's say by the end of the year. Where will they be?
This is a serious issue. And what you're doing right now is trying to put me in the position of being a forecaster. And what you asked before was the right question. What are we doing?
Okay, who's advising the president on the economy? As we just said, if you read the president's forecast
op-ed in the Wall Street Journal, if you read his op-ed in the Wall Street Journal, what we said was that when you look at the strength of household balance sheets, when you look at the fact that inventories are higher, when you look at 3.8 million Americans coming back into the workforce, all of these things suggest that we are in a strong position to make a transition to more balanced economic growth, even with the Federal Reserve having to take tough actions. And then I went through three things: that unlike past presidents, he was going to give all the room and independence to the Federal Reserve to bring down policies. That we were not only, because of his policy, seeing $1.5 trillion in deficit reduction, but that his new policies for the reconciliation for the reconciliation would actually bring down the deficit further dampening inflation.
You
and
are
then
a senior advisor to the
president's
president, and we're just simply
action
asking, what can you tell the American people where prices will be a few months from now? What is your ability to control those prices and bring them down?
What you want from your president is that they're doing everything they can, which is why he had a historic release of 180 million barrels from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, 1 million a day, and why he's asking for 60 million more. It's why he's asking to bring down prescription drug costs that would lower inflation and help working families. Well, look, you know, we can just keep restating this. We face a global inflation problem.
But that's true.
I've just said the numbers are the same everywhere.
You can release as much oil as you want from the Spro. It's not bringing down prices.
And I just said that the president today, just today, in the Wall Street Journal, has an op-ed going through his approach about giving independence to the Fed, giving them room to make tough choices with the strongest tools, monetary tools, that you've seen a commitment.
Well, does he worry the Fed has gotten this wrong? The Fed's gotten this all wrong. The Fed got inflation wrong. They thought it was transitory. Is he confident that they can get this right?
Reduction through his reconciliation plan that would further dampen inflation.
Are we going to hear anything from that meeting?
All the individual items that he's taken.
Can we hear anything from that meeting? Will he be on camera?
I do not know what the press plan is. I think a meeting like that is normally kept close hold so that they can have a frank discussion. And I think it's good that when a president respects the independence of the Federal Reserve Chairman, it makes it easier for them to have a discussion, because the Federal Reserve Chairman knows the president will not cross any boundaries or seek to intimidate them. President Biden's made that clear. He respects the independence. He's made clear that inflation is his #1 priority. Bringing down prices and costs for families is their #1 priority. And I think that shows, you know, an unusual and unfortunately too infrequent degree of leadership and by the president and respect for the independence of the Federal Reserve. And no, I am not a forecaster, and I'm not going to predict, you know, what year the Tigers are going to finally win the World Series.
Who is forecasting for the president? For economists, that is everything. Which economist is advising the president?
The president has a world-class team, including the Secretary of Treasury, Janet Yellen, who is the only woman in the history of our country to be this CEA chair, to be chairman of the Federal Reserve, and to be Secretary of Treasury. And he has a top-class Council of Economic Advisors that is headed by Cecilia Rouse, who was the dean of the Woodrow Wilson, or now just the Princeton Public Policy School. These are excellent economists, but it doesn't mean that they have crystal balls, and it doesn't mean that people can predict everything that happens, including a type of Russian aggression on a neighboring European country that
Gene,
we really
appreciate you joining us.
Since World War II.
These are pretty simple questions, and you know, we appreciate you joining us, but people just want to know what the plan is. I mean, gas prices all-time high, inflation at a 40-year high.
You know what?
The president in his piece makes the case that the economy is thriving.
Here's the deal. I just go through the plan, and you just pretend that I didn't say it. You just ignore it, and you just ask the same questions. It's your show, if that's what you want to do. But when I'm going through this and you just interrupt, I don't see how that's helping your viewers. Now, you could say that you disagree with the plan.
We gave you quite a bit of time to explain.
By the way, last time I was on this show, you were upset because I was talking about the Rick Scott plan that was a leading Republican who was going to raise taxes. Right, and then you said, oh, that's not the plan. You don't have a plan to discuss on the Republican side. You have no plan.
Democrats are in leadership.
I'm here laying out a plan that the president just laid out.
The House, the Senate, the White House?
The president just laid out.
And you want the plan to come from Republicans?
The president just laid out in the Wall Street Journal. And you just want to keep asking the same question. If you'd like to discuss, let's discuss. Should we give Medicare the power to lower prescription drug prices to help at the pocketbooks for tens of millions of senior Americans and working families? Should we cap $35
to go
insulin?
To work?
Should we have a deficit-neutral way of paying for child care so more people could go back to work, earn more money, and reduce inflationary pressures? Should we do that? These are all specific proposals that the president has? Should we pay for things with corporate tax reform that has a 15% minimum tax that would also lower the deficit and further dampen inflationary pressures? These are all
part
of President
Biden's plan. Does the president plan to forgive student loan debt?
If you want to discuss them,
if you want
to discuss them with me, we can.
But we're talking about a president that could be deploying more. He will have an announcement soon, you said?
He has not made an announcement yet, and I don't tend to have the habit of announcing things before he does.
Would you support that if he goes that direction? Is that a good idea?
I'm going to give the president the room to make his decision. I do think that the fact that he has paused student loans for over 40 million Americans has helped them get through this pandemic, and I think there's really no evidence that that has had a negative effect on inflation.
Gene, love talking to you. Thank you for coming on. We hope to get you back soon. Clearly, there is a lot of ground yet to till, but thank you for coming on and explaining your point of view.
You're welcome to come back anytime. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Remember, I'm your commander-in-chief. So don't ask me too tough a question, okay?